So today we're talking about design. It's design day! Woo! Probably everything you own has been designed. Well, maybe not everything. Well, yeah, probably everything. Designs are always made up of building blocks, and today I want to talk about what those building blocks are and how they can help you become a designer. So what we're talking about today are the 7 elements of visual design. So here we go.
That's it? Any questions?
The elements of visual design are really like the alphabet of design. So what does an alphabet do? Well, think of how an alphabet allows you to create words and then sentences. And then from there, it even helps you to create an entire language. So in a real sense, your alphabet is like the building blocks of language. Well, the elements of design are like those building blocks too, and there are 7 of them, and I want to go over them in this video. So drum roll. Okay, the first one is line. The ancient Greek mathematician Archimedes first articulated that the shortest distance between 2 points is a line. But when we were kids, didn't we also think of lines like this? Or this? Or even this? Design is not bound by the mathematical definition of a line. A designer is interested in how a line communicates. And this is determined by the line's dimension, its quality, and its character. Dimension refers to the length or the width of the line. The quality of the line usually deals with its value and intrinsic describable traits. You might say that this is a wavy line, a dotted line, curvy line. Okay, so the character of a line has more to do with its emotionally evocative traits. So for instance, you wouldn't look at a jaggy line and say, man, is that a sensuous line? I mean, maybe you would. I wouldn't. To each his own, I guess. But you might call it a turbulent line, you might call it a violent line, or even a Charlie Brown line. But let me show you another jaggy line that perhaps evokes another emotion. What does this line make you think of? This is an EKG line of a normal heartbeat. If you're thinking in terms of character, you might say that this line evokes life, or love, or excitement, or health. What about this? You've got a line, and then a break, and then another continuation of the line. Visual designers will often try to draw the viewer's focus by creating the essence of a line, even when the line doesn't really exist. This is called an implied line. And an implied line can be used to great effect compositionally. So obviously when designers look at lines, they are looking way beyond the shortest distance between 2 points. They are looking at meaning. Line is the most rudimentary design element and arguably is the most important. Most of the other design elements really do hinge on line. The second visual element is shape. If a line or a group of lines touch to enclose a space, then that space is called a shape. And the quality of the line that creates the shape usually determines the quality and the character of the shape. Since shapes are enclosed, they can create silhouette and outline, which designers can use to further create interest. Sometimes shapes are created between more intentionally created shapes. The lines that create them are made from lines that belong to more obvious shapes. These shapes might also be comprised of implied lines. This is often called negative space or negative shape. And these are often shapes that are meant to appear in the background. They are less emphasized. Yet these two can be utilized and manipulated by the visual designer in order to draw focus and to manipulate emphasis. third element of visual design is mass. Mass is the three-dimensional embodiment of shape. With mass, we become aware of depth and spatial relationships. Though some designers only work in 2 dimensions, all designers need to be aware of the nuances that mass brings to a design. This can be as simple as shading a drawing or designing in light to emphasize the shadows that a mass can produce. Some design areas like architecture, theater, fashion, sculpture, even automobile design and shoe and footwear design, really zillions of other things, are specifically geared towards 3 dimensionals, which means that they are really dealing with mass. Measure is the 4th element of visual design. Simply put, measure deals with the size of a line or a shape or a mass. This can also be called scale. Designers are continually interested in the sizes of dimensional objects. This is especially true when the measure of an object is compared to the measure of other lines or other shapes or other masses. For this reason, measure is closely related to proportion, which is a principle of composition, and I'll cover that in another video. But have you ever tried decorating your room and you said to yourself, "No, that poster is too big for the door"? That's because the size of the poster mattered, and you were playing the role of the designer. Our 5th element of visual design is position. And it is also so important. Where do you put it? This is so basic that it's almost laughable. Most of us have found ourselves at least once or twice laboring over the best place to put a thing. Will it look best on the mantle? Will it look best on the table? Will it look best by the window? Where will it look best? Positioning is important, and designers will labor over the relative location of shapes and masses in order to create the best compositional picture. So position deals with the distance between objects and an object's placement in relation to the other objects around it. Our sixth element of visual design is color. Color is one of the most complex elements of design because it communicates psychologically. Color generates complex responses from the viewer that are based in psychology and culture. Color can be used in a composition to draw focus and emphasis to and away from an object. And color is closely related to human emotion. We can all readily think of hot colors and cool colors. Colors that make us feel sick, or colors that make us feel happy. We can think of colors that attract us or colors that repel us. We can think of colors that grab our attention or that relax us. Color is just huge, and since it has such psychological potential, it is one of the most powerful tools in a designer's toolbox. And finally, the last element of visual design, but certainly not the least, is texture. Texture deals with the tactile or the visual surface traits or qualities of an object. Now, this can seem tricky because when I say tactile, I'm talking about the sense of touch, and these are the visual elements of design. So when I say tactile, that might well mean the sense memory of what we think that surface would feel like were we allowed to touch it. But texture has just as much to do with if a surface looks shiny or fluffy or smooth or rough. It's the difference between jute or muslin or satin. Texture has a lot to do with how surfaces catch the light and how light can be manipulated to actually create the illusion of texture. Much like color, texture speaks to our psychological and cultural expectations. Smooth surfaces might make us think of something clean and refined, while something with a less polished, inexpensive atmosphere might be better created with a rough texture. So there they are, the 7 elements of visual design, and these are enormously helpful to know and really do help create a basis for communication and thinking in the world of design. Hey, stay tuned to this channel because in the near future I will be posting a video about the principles of composition, which will entail how these 7 elements of visual design can be put to work for maximum compositional effect. Hey! You are watching Hey Pete, It's a Creative Life. And on this channel, we try to create a broad variety of creative content like this. And if you liked this video and if you got something out of it, and you would like to see more creative stuff like this, then why don't you consider subscribing? We would love to have you on board. And to those of you who are already subscribed, thank you very much for your support. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.